I'm out here twerking for Trayvon with my Skittles and my watermelon Arizona. I'm standing my ground. Skittles, watermelon Arizona. Zimmerman, would you shoot this sweet ass? I'm standing my ground. These Skittles are so amazing. I'm standing my ground. I'm so thirsty. Oh, these Skittles, Trayvon Skittles.
Go back home to mommy. Go back home. Go back home to mommy. Go back home. That looks like he's 15 years old. What's going on here? What's going on? I take him back home to mom. She'll lock him in his bedroom. So folks, here's what happens. I will call up Karen, the president. I guess I have to do it myself. I know it's not.
Umbrella. She's up. Whole nother level of shit you can't even understand.
What is good, my people? We are live back again with another episode of The Forecast. So out in Georgia, a young brother named Ricky Boyd was shot on his grandmother's porch in front of his grandmother and his brothers and sisters by Savannah police. Now let's go back and find out why this brother got shot in front of his grandmother and his brothers and sisters on his own grandmother's porch.
A 20-year-old Ricky Boyd was determined by police to be the result of a murder suspect shot by officers after he shot at them.
Yeah, hours later then it became the result of a murder suspect confronting police with what appeared to be a handgun. And finally, it became the result of a murder suspect refusing to drop a BB gun after being ordered to do so. Which was it? Or was it any of those scenarios at all? Tonight, I continue an investigation WTOC brought you exclusively last night. Boyd's family wants the truth, but knows that to get there, the rest of you will have to see what they saw that morning by seeing video only police have. For 11 weeks now, Ricky Boyd's family has been saying the same thing about the morning that 20-year-old stepped out of his home and into a semicircle of U.S. Marshal Fugitive Task Force and Metro officers. Boyd's grandmother was the first ordered out of the house that morning and says she was positioned not 30 feet from the front door when Ricky exited the house.
And I see Ricky come out. And you could hear somebody say it to him. Like must be calling him or something, saying something, because you could see him where he turned around. You could see where he turned around this way, like a voice came from this way. Then a voice came from that way. Then I heard somebody say, he got a gun, and I say, don't shoot. He don't have no gun.
Yes.
What followed was chaos on Marion Circle. Family, friends, and neighbors screaming about what they claimed was an unjustified police shooting. Adding confusion to the events of that morning were the statements coming from law enforcement.
He initiated gunfire towards officers. The officers returned gunfire.
That was followed hours later with a statement omitting the claim Boyd ever fired at police.
They called out the suspect and he confronted them with a weapon.
That weapon was quickly identified as a BB gun, not a firearm. And despite witness claims, the GBI later said police gave Boyd verbal commands to drop the gun, but he raised it toward them anyway. And despite a Savannah police sergeant being hit by multiple bullets, not BBs, in the alleged exchange of gunfire, the Savannah police Twitter page still says Boyd initiated gunfire with officers. In an effort to calm the anger, members of the family say the GBI showed them at least one body camera view of what took place that morning. No questions, just a quick look and an escort out. You've seen this footage?
Yes.
Is it body camera footage?
Yes.
Does it hold up to what you're telling me here today?
Yes.
Now Wallace wants the rest of the world to see the same footage.
The reason I want the video to be seen, they will see that Ricky didn't have a gun. That's why it's important. They will see that my grandson got shot for nothing.
Based on what they saw, Savannah attorney Will Claiborne was hired to help tell the family's story and get answers.
People in the community need to know that Ricky Boyd did not have a gun on him when the police shot him.
This morning, his firm released its own video pointing out the inconsistencies he claims exist in the police version of what happened that morning. One of the items Claiborne points to is this never-before-seen photograph he says was taken by a neighbor moments after the shooting stopped. In it, you can see what appears to be a police officer behind a pine tree, but perhaps more important is what's laying on the ground just behind him. Is that the BB gun police claim Boyd refused to drop? It certainly matches the pine straw-covered location in this GBI-released forensic photograph. Now, Claiborne says, is the question of location.
Show me where that gun was found.
The gun was found 43 feet to my left, this direction
Take
here.
me there.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, about 15 full paces.
This is where the gun was.
Approximately here.
And that picture shows the gun.
Correct.
As well as an officer behind the tree.
The picture was taken from the front door area here of the house next door. And from that picture, we were able to place the gun approximately here. And again, we laid down measuring tape, and it took two 25-feet tape measures to get the distance.
Claiborne says Boyd would have to throw the gun into the neighbor's yard after being shot. So did he?
What's to say that Ricky just didn't throw that weapon?
The tape. The tape of the incident, the body cam footage, is what will show what happened. If they release that footage, then we'll see Ricky come out the door. And we'll see, is there a dramatic throwing gesture that he makes? To throw a BB gun 43 feet would require some actual effort.
Claiborne and Maddie Wallace say the tape will clear Ricky Boyd's name.
I always had faith in our system. But when it hit home, you see reality real wake you up.
Attorney Will Claiborne is hoping this short video will wake police up to the reality that proving their version of events or disproving Ricky Boyd's family will require the release of that body camera footage. And just hours ago, the GBI, which was given complete control over the Ricky Boyd death investigation, turned its results over to the Chatham County District Attorney's Office for review. And then there's this. Alderman Tony Thomas posting Will Claiborne's video to his Alderman Facebook page saying he does not have faith in Meg Heap's office to investigate this case. Bring in the feds, he adds. He also says something the Boyd family would likely agree with. If the Savannah police chief is telling the truth, then why not release the video? Once we get a chance to see that footage, so will you.
So, according to the police, the U.S. Marshals were there to arrest him because he had a warrant out for a murder for a crime he didn't even commit. This brother didn't even have a criminal record. So they pulled everybody out of the house one by one, his grandmother, his brothers, his sisters. And the police initially said when Ricky Boyd came out, he had a gun and he started shooting. And one of the cops, Sergeant Sean Wilson, got hit. And they tried to make it seem like this brother Ricky Boyd shot him when another cop shot him. Which brings up other questions like, why are you shooting your gun when it's another cop so close that he could get hit? And I'm pretty sure they have a policy about putting other cops in danger. But this brother didn't have a gun, so the police chief, Mark Revenew, had to change his story. It went from he came out shooting at the cops to he had a BB gun. So then they said he raised the gun in the air, so they had no other choice but to start shooting at him. Because I'm pretty sure the defense is going to be, I fear for my life. But the family who was standing right there watching had a different story. They said he came out showing his hands, he didn't have a gun, and they shot him. But then a neighbor whose car got shot up, which shows how many times the police shot at this young brother, came out to take pictures of what happened to his car and pictures of who did it. And the picture showed the gun 43 feet away from his brother Ricky Boyd in his neighbor's yard, which means this brother would have had to throw the gun while he was being shot or after he got shot. Now, there were 10 cops on the scene, but out of 10 cops, only one had body camera footage. And the police refused to release the body camera footage, but they showed this brother's mom one video, and she is demanding that they make the body camera footage public.
Federal prosecutors tonight are reviewing a request for an independent investigation into a deadly police shooting in Savannah, Georgia. 20-year-old Ricky Boyd was killed outside his house. The official explanation has changed several times. Here's Mark Strassman.
And then boom.
And boom. He's shot, he's fallen to the ground.
Jamila Smiley has seen the body camera video of police shooting her son, 20-year-old Ricky Boyd, right outside the family's front door back in January.
So horrible to have to watch my child get gunned down.
Police wanted to question Boyd about a recent homicide. Minutes later, he was dead. Interim Police Chief Mark Revenew the day of the shooting.
He initiated gunfire towards officers. The officers returned gunfire. We do have one of our sergeants that was shot several times.
Hours later, they said Boyd had a gun, but never mentioned he fired it. State investigators later said it was only a BB gun. Did you ever see a gun that he held in that video?
No, sir.
Family lawyer William Claiborne says this photo shows a BB pistol lying in a neighbor's yard.
When I stepped out the house, I took a picture of the damages of my car. I zoomed in and I seen there was a gun over here.
The body is here, and how far is it from where the body is found to where the gun is found?
Approximately 43 feet.
And what explains that?
There's no explanation for that.
We went to Savannah police for answers to their shifting account. They declined to talk about any aspect of the case. Smiley demanded answers before Savannah City Council last week.
The city of Savannah took him away from me, from all of us. The police shot and killed Ricky right in front of his grandmother, right in front of his brothers and his sisters. I want an answer from each of you. Do you support releasing the body cam right now? I am prepared to stand here until I get an answer.
Ma'am, the city cannot release it. Is not going to release the video right now.
Is that a yes or no?
Ma'am, we won't be able to answer yes or no on that.
I am prepared to stand here until yes or no.
Well, nobody, we're not going to do that.
This hearing is completed now.
And
now we will ask y'all to leave.
They didn't have to kill my son. They didn't have to kill him. I'm so sorry. They didn't have to kill him.
The local district attorney's office is still investigating the case. Jeff, they told us their final report and a decision whether to press charges should be finished by the end of next month.
So this police chief, Mark Revenew, who was already caping too soon, and then he got caught up in some lies, and they kept changing their side of the story even though they have video evidence that they refuse to release. So I don't know how the people who have the video change their story the most, because when they do, that's the first thing you hear about. That's why they love to bring up your criminal past. But this young brother, Ricky Boyd, didn't have a criminal past for them to bring up. And not only have they not released the body camera footage, they have not released the names of the police officers. His mother says she still hasn't seen the autopsy. The White House was even asked about this case specifically, and Sarah Huckabee Sanders, referring to these police shootings, said these are local matters that should be handled by local officials, basically saying they should just investigate themselves. But the lawyers and the family are asking for outside investigators for this case.
Now, a fatal police shooting in Georgia leads to questions about how officers reacted, killing a man in his family's front yard. 20-year-old Ricky Boyd was shot outside his grandmother's home 3 months ago today. The Savannah police have said Boyd was a suspect in a murder and, along with U.S. Marshals, went to the house to arrest him. They initially said Boyd fired first and was killed. They later said he walked out with a firearm, which was eventually found to be a BB gun. The family deny that Boyd was involved with a murder and say he was unarmed. The BB gun, they said, was later found nearly 45 feet from the house. They're now asking the police department to release body cam video from the shooting. The police department, the state's attorney, and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation all would not comment on a pending investigation.
We requested information about the January 21st homicide, and what we received back from the Savannah Police Department was a letter indicating that that was still an active and open investigation. We know and are confident that Ricky Boyd did not commit that murder, and the Savannah Police Department knows it. What they haven't done is told the citizens here in Savannah that that murderer is walking free. They haven't made an arrest in that case, and we have no real confidence in this point that they are taking productive steps to address that murder. That's another family that deserves justice.
Do you have any sense of timeline now? What will happen next in the investigation?
We've been given no real sense of a timeline here. No idea when we're going to get answers as to what happened to Ricky. And we're being forced to just simply wait, which can only be agonizing for Ricky's family. Now, I'd like to point out that there's information that's routinely released in officer-involved shootings that we've not received. We don't know who shot Ricky. We don't know if that individual is on administrative leave. We know nothing about their background. They're providing absolutely no information whatsoever.
Let me ask you about the body camera footage, though, because I understand that's central to some of the requests here. You'd like to see that released. What have they told you about when it will be released or if it will be released?
All they're saying is that this is an active investigation, and as part of the investigation file, they won't release it. But I'd like to point out that they did release photographs of this BB gun that they claim that Ricky had. They've released other matters from their investigative file, but they're choosing to selectively withhold this. What they need to do is just show that video and allow the public to see what actually occurred.
This case has certainly caught the rest of the country's attention, and even the White House has been asked about similar incidents with police-involved shootings. They've basically said that these are local matters to be handled by local authorities. What do you say to that?
Well, I guess the question is, how do you tell this family to trust local authorities and that this is a local matter when the very first thing that happened that morning was for the police chief to stand on the street corner and tell verifiable falsehoods about what occurred? To tell this family that this is a local matter and to trust local authorities to handle it when local authorities have been lying from the very first minute, it's just inhumane.
And I want to remind everybody, this is going to be a very long, thorough investigation.
We ask that people not speculate or make any unsubstantiated comments.
When this is all said and done, this will all be well documented.
So the DA, Meg Heap, who you can vote if you want her as your DA if you live in Chatham County in Georgia, is going to decide whether any of these cops should face charges or not. But you can already tell, even though she's still supposed to be investigating, that she has her cape on for the cops. and what the results are most likely going to be. She's telling the lawyer that if they have any more evidence that she doesn't know about, he should turn it in. As if the evidence she doesn't know about isn't enough. They were there for a murder warrant for somebody who never committed murder, who never committed any crime. And they had no business there in the first place. The cops changed their story several times. At first they said he came out shooting, trying to make it seem like one of their cops got shot, but they actually shot themselves. So we know at least one of the cops put another cop's life in danger, and we know more than one cop broke policy. And this DA, Meg Heap, actually won awards for victimology. They gave her an award for her efforts to help crime victims and give them aid through policy and practice. And these are the good people we're depending on for justice. This brother was shot in front of his grandmother, in front of his brothers, in front of his sisters, and they couldn't do anything about it. We march for justice and we talk about it because we can't do anything about it. At some point, not only the survival of our children, and if we want our children to have the most opportunities to prosper, then we're going to have to put aside our tribalism and do something about it. At the end of the day, we all we got. If we don't do it, nobody else is.
Ms. Smiley, I'd like to start by asking you about a key piece of evidence that a lot of people are focused on right now. That is the body camera footage. You want to see that released. You have seen footage from one of the officers who was on scene that day. Can you take a moment and describe for me what you saw in that footage?
As I was looking at the film on the laptop, they let me look at this film on their laptop, and I noticed my son was coming out of the door. He was wiping his eye, and he walked out. He presented his arms out like he's surrendering, turned to his left, and he was immediately shot, falling forward to the ground.
Ms. Smiley, the Savannah police maintain that your son had a BB gun in his arms, that he confronted them with what they didn't know at the time was a BB gun. Do you have any reason to believe that he had one in his hands, or was there one in the house he had access to?
No, ma'am, he never had a gun in his hand at all.
Ms. Smiley, I understand the police chief came to your home and promised you and your family that there would be a fair and thorough investigation. Do you believe that that will happen?
No, ma'am. I'm 3 months into his killing and have yet to receive an autopsy. I have yet to receive any type of information concerning my son killing.
And it's also our understanding the police were there that day along with U.S. Marshals to serve a warrant to your son. They believe that he was involved in the murder of another young man a few days earlier. Do you or anyone in your family have any reason to believe that your son was involved in that murder?
Ma'am, the local detectives here also have been back to my home and know, they have said that my son, they know my son have not committed this murder. So I don't know why they have not come forth and clear my son's name, but they know my son did not commit that murder.
You're saying law enforcement there have already confirmed to you that they know your son was not involved in that murder. That was the reason they came to the house in the first place that day.
One of the detectives that was on the case, she said it out her mouth that she knows my son did not commit this murder.
Ms. Smiley, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you, there's obviously been a lot of news, a lot of stories, a lot of reporting surrounding this one incident, this one day. What can you tell us about your son? What's not being said about him right now?
What's not being said that one, excuse me, was not being said that he was innocent, he was a good person, and that he did not commit any of those things that these officers are saying. He never shot at a cop. He never committed a murder. And my life son is taken.
Yeah, guys, now it may not be long before we have an answer as to whether police acted appropriately when they shot Ricky Boyd to death last January. The DA telling me today the case will go to a grand jury the week of May 21st. That also means, despite threats against her office, she will not be turning the Ricky Boyd shooting case over to federal prosecutors. Heap also had this to say about the demand Boyd family attorney Will Claiborne made that she hand the case over to the feds by 4 p.m. today.
I'm not responding to threats. I'm going to do my job.
It's clear the DA is not handing the case over.
We set a deadline because the time has well passed for there to be a full, fair, and impartial investigation in this case. We wanted this district attorney to make a decision whether she was going to do the right thing or not. That's not a threat. That is a request for a full, fair, and impartial investigation.
Heap says she is doing the right thing and what's required by a 2016 Georgia law dictating how officer-involved shooting cases are supposed to be handled by local prosecutors.
All the evidence should be presented before the grand jury or before a court where rules of evidence apply on any given case. We have done this in the past. I believe it's been fair for all individuals, and it also gives a level of transparency.
There has been a call by Boyd's family to release police body camera video to the public. This after the GBI showed a portion of it to his family weeks ago. I asked Heap about the allegations that she, along with the GBI, facilitated that meeting.
The GBI reached out to the family to meet. It was done at my office, but it was not with the blessing of my office.
I reached out to the GBI today for official statement after hearing that from the DA, asking if there was a coordinated effort to show the family police body cam video. At first, the GBI said yes, adding they did so to keep Boyd's family informed early on. After getting conflicting information, I reached back out to the DA's office and was told I should be getting a more corrected statement by the GBI shortly. I did get a different statement saying the DA, in fact, was not part of that effort. Now, once again, Meg Heap tells me she would have never shown that police body camera video to the family of Ricky Boyd. The GBI claiming at first it was Heap's office that helped coordinate the video showing, then saying it was their idea. The grand jury will see the evidence, including the now infamous police body cam video, the week of the 21st. We'll let you know as soon as their opinion is back to the district attorney's office.
Goes on file. Hi, I'm Karen Turner. Hi, Ms. Nader. I'm a resident. There you go.
It's fine. I don't need that.
Okay, fine. I'm Karen Turner.
You're just here as the rider, right?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm here as a concerned citizen and friend of the mayor, and been in Tenafly for 20 years. I take full responsibility for them. And what is the reason they were pulled over?
The driver has all the information. He'll tell you.
No. I need to know.
No, you don't need to know.
That is my business card. I am the commissioner of the Port Authority, and I'm heading up over 4,000 police officers. Okay? So, if there's a problem, I think I have...
There's no problem.
Well, I think there's a problem.
It's an unregistered vehicle.
Okay. Let's hear, why were they pulled over, first of all?
Miss.
Now, don't call me miss. I'm commissioner. Thank you. This is impacting me because I got 4 people who are coming back to my house, including people who live in New Haven attending Yale Graduate School, a PhD student.
It's more of the way you just approached me and your demeanor.
You know what? Okay.
I'm being honest with you.
I want to know why.
I just don't appreciate your demeanor.
I don't
You're being
appreciate...
very demanding with me.
No, I'm
stating
asking
based
you.
off of your position
I'm asking
in another
you.
agency,
I'm asking
whatever it
you.
may be. I mean, you have a business card with credentials.
Times?
I don't know you. I just met you a minute ago.
I'm very disappointed in the way the two of you are acting.
Just for safety reasons, this is a high-speed road. I think we should all get off of the road. It's a little bit dangerous for us being out here as long as we were
Thank
anyway.
you for your concern with my safety.
Okay.
Can't put together a sketch of what the problem
Are you finished
is.
now? Are you finished, ma'am?
I'm shocked.
Are you
I'm
finished?
shocked and very disappointed. Thank you for your help.
You may take them now.
You may not tell me when to take my child. You may shut the up and not tell me when I may take my kid and her friends. I will be talking to the chief of police.
Please.
And I will be speaking to the mayor.
Badge number 540.
I got all your information,
Okay.
sweetheart. You can't put a sentence together. That's shameful. You know what, Matt? This isn't going to go down nicely.
Coming over to a vehicle that's lawfully being impounded?
Because I want to know
I
where
don't know what
it's
you're
going.
doing. The driver was advised where it's going, as was your daughter.
Not.
Your daughter was very nice as well. She asked, and I told her.
Guess what? I'm not so nice. And you can tell that to everybody, and it's fine.
Okay.
And and the police have all been in my home, and in my second home, and in the third home in Tenafly.
I don't see how that's relevant, but for this situation.
Ma'am, you have to calm down.
I have PTSD.
The reason why I pulled you over was because you were going 43 and a 30, which was 13 over, okay?
I was going at the same pace as every car. I couldn't go slower. They honk. They honk at you. I have PTSD. I'm going to protest this in court. And you're telling me that you singled me out. That's what you're telling me, right? And then everyone was going at the same pace, right? I drive on that road at 30 miles an hour all the time.
Are you going to listen to me, or
yes,
do you?
I will listen to you, and you're not going to let me go, even though I'm a county legislator. And I always do everything right, and I follow the law, and I was at the same pace as every other car.
Ma'am, you're going to let me explain this to you here? You let me talk, okay? And then I'll give you a chance to talk, okay? You have it.
Just tell me what you're doing here with the ticket, because I am late for a job meeting, and I'm going to. Okay. This is my career. Sorry, I'm having a panic attack.
Do you need medical attention? Would you like me to call you an ambulance? I've explained everything to you already.
But I didn't understand.
Okay,
and
but
that's why
I've been here for about 30 minutes explaining it to you.
See, I've already missed my job interview now, and I'm asking you.
I have other stuff that I need to do too.
I know, but I'm a taxpayer in Ulster County.
Okay, and
I'm also a
I've here
in Ulster
and I've
County,
accommodated you, and I've explained everything to you to the best of my ability.
You didn't
yes,
explain
I
the
did,
previous one
ma'am.
to me.
I'm not going to argue with you any further.
I did.
Do you need medical attention? Would you like me to call you an ambulance?
I can't.
Okay, if you want to sit down, I can explain this to you, okay?
You better give me a ticket.
We are joined now by two of Bill Cosby's publicists, Andrew Wyatt and Ebony Benson. Thank you both for joining us. And Ebony, let me begin with you. You just heard those victims right there saying it wouldn't break their heart for Bill Cosby to spend the rest of his life in jail. Your response?
I think it's very interesting that she chose words such as massive man, especially when she gave in her testimony that her and her friend Judy were actually on their way because they enjoyed big black men. And again,
you really
in Janet Kenny's testimony, she talked about getting effed up and sleeping with Bill Cosby. Again, we're talking about accusations that have not been followed up with any evidence besides what our defense attorneys did. There was evidence completely, blatantly, selectively overlooked by the Commonwealth in this situation. Again, women who knew who this man was, they had an agenda, they sought their agenda, and then years later come with accusations because they woke up and saw someone on TV. Again, of course they would feel that way. Of course they would feel that they want him to spend the rest of his life in jail because that's been the agenda that they set out with from the beginning.
A jury of Bill Cosby's peers looked at all the evidence, decided he was guilty of those crimes. Andrew Wyatt, where is Mr. Cosby this morning? How's he feeling? His reaction?
And just to follow up on that, you said a jury of his peers. They also had a huge amount of prejudice and bias by having 5 women also testify to crimes which he was not on trial for. Go ahead.
And you asked me how's Mr. Cosby. Mr. Cosby is right now with Mrs. Cosby. He's feeling great. He's confident. He's not going. Although he has been found guilty, he's innocent of these charges, and he maintains his innocence. And he's going to walk around as a man who's innocent because he didn't do anything wrong.
You say he's comforted. What is he comforted by?
He's confident because he didn't do anything wrong. These are allegations. They're decade-long allegations, George. These women have no evidence. They went to no authorities. They parade these 5 distractors in to tell stories and talk about the drug habits they had. You have Lisa Lott Lublin, who said, I don't even remember if anything happened to me. I think these jurors got it wrong. You had juror number 11, George, who said before the trial started that Mr. Cosby was guilty, and why why even waste our time? Let's just find the man guilty. He said it to 3 other jurors.
Our defense attorneys fought hard to make sure that that juror did not end up in that box, and yet and still you had a person with a 100 complete bias sitting there, not interested in any evidence that was presented by the defense. So yes, they heard evidence, but a bias was already there.
Hold on a second. Some 60 women have accused Bill Cosby of various indiscretions, of sexual harassment. You're saying all these women, all 60 women are lying?
May I ask a question? Since when are all people honest? And since when are all women honest? We can take a look at Emmett Till, for example. Since when are all people honest?
Well, and George, this became a public lynching. What they did, what Gloria Allred was able to do, she took a salt and pepper shaker. She shaked out a lot of salt and sprinkled in a little black pepper. And the South came east, and that's what we saw. The sheer volume of people coming forward, that's what they did in order to persuade public opinion.
And 60 women coming forward, where are the 60 criminal charges? Where are those charges? Yes, these women have allegations, but where is the evidence? Where's the proof? Where have they gone to authorities? Where have these authorities found that it was sufficient evidence to pursue a case?
The jury looked at all that. Excuse me. The jury looked at all that. They made their decision. Thank you both for your time this morning.
All right, and we back on the forecast. So recently, everybody's been talking about what Kanye West said about slavery and slavery being a choice. And normally, I don't like talking about Kanye West or what Kanye West said. But so many people have an opinion on what Kanye West said. And there's so many opinions on it that we got to talk about it.
I don't think people necessarily understand what happened last week with the Make America Great Again hat. What are you trying to do with the message you're sending?
Well, it was really just my subconscious. It was a feeling I had, like people were taught how to think, we're taught how to feel. We don't know how to think for ourselves. We don't know how to feel for ourselves. People say feel free, but they don't really want us to feel free. And I felt a freedom in, first of all, just doing something that everybody tells you not to do. I just love Trump. That's my boy. It's like so many rappers. You'll look at a video of Snoop Dogg loving Trump, but then he get in the office and now they don't love him. Like, Trump is one of rap's favorite people, right?
But we talk about this, that before he was elected president, people in hip hop, it was an in thing to put Donald Trump in your rhyme somewhere.
And by the way, I am in hip hop, but I'm not just in hip hop. I'm a black person in the black community, but I'm not just that. I feel like one thing is people try to minimize me to artists, hip hop, black community. Yeah, I'm always gonna represent that, but I also represent the world. When you hear about slavery for 400 years, that sounds like a choice. Like, you was there for 400 years and it's all of y'all? It's like we're mentally in prison. I like the word prison because slavery goes too direct to the idea of blacks. It's like slavery, Holocaust Jews, slavery is blacks. So prison is something that unites us as one race, blacks and whites being one race, that we're the human race.
Do you feel that I'm feeling, do you feel that I'm being free and I'm thinking free?
I actually don't think you're thinking anything. I think what you're doing right now is actually the absence of thought. And the reason why I feel like that is because Kanye, you're entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to believe whatever you want. But there is fact and real world, real life consequence behind everything that you just said. And while you are making music and being an artist and living the life that you've earned by being a genius, the rest of us in society have to deal with these threats to our lives. We have to deal with the marginalization that has come from the 400 years of slavery that you said for our people was a choice. Frankly, I'm disappointed, I'm appalled, and brother, I am unbelievably hurt by the fact that you have morphed into something, to me, that's not real. Bro, you gotta be responsible, man.
Bro, I'm sorry I hurt you.
You gotta be responsible, dog.
I'm sorry I hurt you, bro.
Your voice is too big.
So first of all, as far as Kanye West, he's coming from a place of, I'm not black, I'm Kanye. And he's talking about the prison system unites us as one race, when the prisons are disproportionately filled with black men, and most of them for non-violent drug offenses. There are black men doing more time for weed than white men have done for rape. And when you talk about the prison, ironically, that is legalized slavery. when you read the 13th Amendment, it says slavery is abolished except if you're convicted of a crime. Now, it didn't say anything about what the crimes are going to be, who gets to decide what the crimes are, who gets to hand out the punishment. It does say a jury of your peers, but they constantly violate that. There are more black men incarcerated today than there was in slavery. And they get mad about illegal immigrants taking jobs, but they don't say anything about the jobs leaving for the prison industry. But the question is, was slavery a choice? And yes, to a degree, it was. Like today, when the police come into one of our neighborhoods and shoot down one of our brothers and sisters, we have a choice to not let that cop leave out of there without receiving some sort of justice. We have a choice to all be armed, so when the cop comes in to arrest somebody, he'll think twice about violating his rights. But it's easier said than done. But all we can really do is pull out our phones and start recording and saying how fucked up it is. Because it's easier said than done. You can say you have a choice, but we see our brothers and sisters shot down every day and we don't do anything. Because we don't have any power and we choose not to. We're too busy caping for everybody else. We can't cape for ourselves. Now, I've seen a lot of people debating this topic, especially those who agree with Kanye West, use so much misinformation to justify what Kanye West said. For one, you can't use Harriet Tubman as an excuse to justify what Kanye said. Harriet Tubman was born a slave, and it wasn't her choice. Now, at some point, she chose to leave the plantation, and she helped as many people as she could leave the plantation, and she was a hero. But Harriet Tubman was the most wanted person of her time, maybe in American history. Was Harriet Tubman ever really free? If it was as simple as choosing to be free, why aren't we free by now? And my problem with this whole thing is the amount of misinformation. So much of our history has been destroyed that we don't even learn the history that we can learn about ourselves. When you learn the history, you'll realize it's not so simple as just choosing to be a slave or not. And most of us don't understand the context of the history. When we talk about 400 years, we don't understand the history of racism and our own oppression. When you talk about 400 years, those people who came over here in 1619, they were indentured servants, not slaves. They literally worked for a certain amount of years and got their freedom. And got land and everything else they were supposed to get. The first slave on record in the 13 colonies, which we call America today, was a brother named John Punch in 1640. There were 3 slaves that ran away. 2 were white, 1 was black. A Dutchman, an Irishman, and an African. When they were caught and went to trial, the Dutchman was sentenced to lashes. The Irishman was sentenced to lashes and an extra 2 years of servitude. The African was sentenced to the lashes and life in servitude. And we haven't been equal in the justice system ever since 1640. But even then, at that point, racism wasn't the same as we understand it today. That's why they say there were black slave owners. And they try to say the first slave owner in America was black, but it wasn't. They're talking about a man called Anthony Johnson. In 1654, he sued to have a black slave. But by the time he died in the 1660s or 1670s, racism started becoming what we know it is today. By the time he died, they took all of his property, his houses, his slaves, everything he had, his money, because he was black and therefore was not entitled to any property. He didn't have any rights. And once Virginia started passing laws about you are who your mother is, meaning if your mother is a slave, then you're a slave, then everybody else started falling in line. And they base your lineage on your mother because they rape black women so much. But because that child came from a black woman, it's still considered black. It's still considered a slave. But during the early 1600s, you can go to court and say, well, I've accepted the ways of an Englishman, or I'm a Christian, and they would grant you freedom. Because for a while, they still followed the rules of you can't enslave your own people. Now, by the 1660s, 1670s, all of that went out the window. Yeah, here it is, 2018, and we still have black people talking about, I've accepted the ways of the Englishman. And we still have that Christian mentality programmed into our heads. Now, to say our ancestors had a choice as if they're wishing extinction on us is disrespectful to everything that our ancestors did to get us to where we are today. You speak as if our ancestors didn't die on the slave ships jumping overboard, as if they didn't run away every chance they get, and most times getting their limbs chopped off, hiding out day and night from the patty rollers, which eventually became the police. And we have just as much power now as they did back then. But people say they have a choice as if there wasn't countless rebellions.
Did you know that in America there were over 300 recorded armed resistant movements? Yes, from the brave warriors of the Bacon Rebellion, the Stono Rebellion, Nat Turner, to the ingenious plots of Denmark Vesey and Gabriel Prosser. We're going to look at one of the largest movements, the Louisiana Uprising of 1811, and how they came very, very close in creating a black republic, a land of freedom, true democracy, and protection from European oppression. A combative, daring, direct approach of overthrowing the old oppressive machine, taking away the land from the slave owners without compensation, and turning the land over to be controlled and owned by the true tillers of the land. This is what revolution is: the removing of one class of power and replacing it with the new class or new coalition. And that's just what our brave ancestors of Louisiana attempted in 1811. To accomplish this, Dessalines' strategy was a two-pronged military attack on the city of New Orleans. One prong of the attack was for the enslaved Africans joined with the maroon communities to move from plantation to plantation along the Mississippi River. They would first fight off the loyal slaves, then slay the slaveholders, and assemble an army as they moved down the river road. They would capture the city of New Orleans and make it the capital of the new republic. The other prong attack was to involve the enslaved Africans inside of New Orleans, who would at the same time seize the arsenal at Fort St. Charles and distribute the weapons to the arriving slave army. Under Dessalines' directions, New Orleans would serve as the base of a liberated zone where slaves from all over the South could come to gain their freedom. Dessalines and his comrades began the uprising with two slogans: "On to New Orleans," and "Freedom or Death." There were no promises. There were no guarantees that it would work. But under this tyranny, it was better to fight than to die under their oppressive rule. Under the leadership of Manuel Audrey, a territorial militia of roughly 80 men went to attack and take down the African army. But they were outnumbered and defeated. So General Wade Hampton was then dispatched to New Orleans along with the U.S. troops. No, he wasn't dispatched to stop the slave owners and others from exploiting, torturing, raping, killing our ancestors. Nope, he wasn't dispatched to ensure freedom and democracy for all people under this fairly new Constitution. No, those proud American patriots under the banner of the red, white, and blue marched in to end any hope of democracy for our ancestors and to place them right back under the oppressive rule of the slave owners and the white power structure. Governor Wade Hampton's army, together with Major Milton at Destrehan Plantation, being well armed, was able to stop the uprising. Some of the leaders were captured, placed on trial, and executed. Their heads were cut off and placed on poles for more than 60 miles along the river in order to frighten and intimidate the other enslaved Africans. Later that year, the Africans rose up, and this was followed in 1812 by a new round of plots and revolts inside the city of New Orleans. Over the next several decades, the resistance escalated until finally the children and the grandchildren of the 1811 revolutionary Africans would triumph and defeat the dictatorship of the slaveholding class in the Civil War. Understand that when any African, whether enslaved or free, fought to liberate themselves, seek land, and come from under European oppression,
It jeopardized the very wealth system of what Europeans were creating with this exploitation. And this meant death.
Now, when people say we have a choice, they really mean slavery or death. But we have to realize we have more than those two options. The point is to get out of this situation with as few casualties as possible. There has been so much of our blood shed for so many years. We shouldn't be in a rush to waste even more without a plan. And today, we have a choice. We could easily build our own economy. We can nominate the most successful black business people and have them strictly in charge of funding and helping grow black businesses, putting black businesses in our areas so we can support them, so they can hire us. And we all can contribute to it, no matter how much money you have. And when you build an economy, you can build things like schools, and you can be in charge of educating your own children. You can be able to fund your own politicians for your local areas. You can be in charge of who's on your local city council, who's the mayor, who's the DA, who's the police chief. And we have to get to a point where instead of giving them our tax money goes into our own communities. So we can have programs for the mentally ill and programs to help people in bad situations. But they are never going to give that up without a fight. We have to understand that no matter what we build, they are going to come. We have to learn from the history that we do know. Every time we've had successful communities, they've come in and destroyed it. Our ancestors left us the blueprint on how to be successful, but we have to learn how to protect it and how to protect ourselves and our children and our elderly. As long as we're subject to their jurisdiction, their laws, their punishment, then we're going to be enslaved. They live by the words of Patrick Henry, "Give me liberty or give me death." But we have to respond with more urgency than they do to stay in the position they're in. It is our blood being shed. It is our children's blood being shed. At some point, we got to put our tribalism to the side and do what we got to do.
So what they're saying is that, again, we took 20 minutes, but this group right here was right behind us. So if we took 20 minutes, then that means that they came off of hole 9, and they have not yet parred off on hole 10. Then the group behind us had to take 20 minutes to get from 9 to 10.
It's 128. You got off the green at not 12:45.
And so they're saying they want to kick us off the hole. And this is former Commissioner Steve Cronister.
Congratulations, you're a real winner.
So they say they want to kick us off the hole because we took a break in between the holes, and the people behind us had not even teed off yet.
Remove yourself from our premises in the next 5 minutes, please.
Because the authorities have been called.
All right.
Back off, okay? Yes, back off. This is what she wants. This is what she does for a living. It's fine.
Okay.
We asked you 3 times now to remove yourself from the premises. You have yet to remove yourself.
And why is it that we took? Why did you say you would remove us from the premises? What was the confrontation? You came to us. We were trying to tee off, and you came. 5 of you men came up to us.
So we said, "Hey, can you move along quicker, please?"
No. We were just about to tee off. The group took a beer break, and so we were about to tee off, and you just came to us saying we had to leave.
All right.
I don't appreciate you getting me on video.
It's a public place, and you wouldn't be involved if you didn't say anything.
One of 5 black women who were told to leave a Pennsylvania golf course said it felt like they were playing with targets on their back. Sandra Harrison said representatives at the Grandview Golf Club in York told the group they were playing too slow earlier in the round. After the 9th hole, a group of men, all white, reportedly told them that they took too long a break and needed to leave.
It's 128. You got off the green at not 12:45.
And so they're saying they want to kick us off the hole. And this is former Commissioner Steve Cronister.
Congratulations, you're a real winner.
So they say they want to kick us off the hole because we took a break in between the holes, and the people behind us had not even teed off yet.
The club called police on the 2 women who remained. No charges were filed. Club co-owner J.J. Cronister has said she called the women personally to sincerely apologize. The group of 5 are part of a larger golf club for local women known as Sisters in the Fairway and are reportedly experienced players.
It's one of those fights that is so small that literally standard size carry-ons weren't allowed on the aircraft. And then she eventually looks over to me and says, can you move over? And I tell her, no, I actually can't move over. She just kept doing things with her body that let me know that I was unwelcome in that space. Because of her aggressive body language, I remember saying like, wow, I can't believe you're treating me like this. When I was deplaning, this is when I first saw her say to one of the flight attendants, who at first, the first person she complained to was like a black male flight attendant, that I had harassed her and I did not. And she points me out. The flight attendant comes over to me and she says, you need to get off the shuttle. I ask her why. And she says, I'm calling the cops. I'm calling security. And I just begin to get nervous because I know that there's only 11% on my battery, and that there are no other people on this plane who look like me. This woman who I'm on the shuttle with, she looks at me and she says, are you okay? And I tell her, no, I don't know what's about to happen to me, but if you could take down my phone number and please, if something happens to me, record it and just send it to my phone. Because I know that regardless of what happens, like, I will have this phone on me. The police officer, a white male, comes. As I'm reaching for my ID, I ask him, I look up and I say, did you ask her for her ID? And he goes, no, I don't need your abuse. And I'm like, all right, so this is who I'm dealing with, because my arm touched this woman on this flight. And I reach in my bag and I hand him my ID and he snatches it out of my hand. And I see behind it that there's a group of tarmac workers, and they're all people of color. And I just make eye contact with them so that they know that I'm not a threat and that I am doing everything this person is asking me to do. Corporations like American Airlines are clearly being led by their greed of stuffing passengers onto planes, okay? And because of that, mixed in with the climate that we're in this country, mixed in with the biases that people have around black folks, around fat black folks, around fat people in general, that they are allowed to use that bias to then make it seem as though that they have some entitlement to space. And I think that we need to have a real conversation that encourages white people to stop calling the cops on black folks for mundane reasons.
It's embarrassing, and I was angry.
It was the unsolicited homecoming that left Bronx native Darren Martin unsettled. After spending several years working on Capitol Hill and in the White House with the Obama administration, Martin recently made the move back to New York, getting a job with the city and finding a unit in this 5-story walk-up on the Upper West Side. On moving day this past Friday, Martin got an unexpected visit from the NYPD.
I'm in my apartment, but, you know, can't go nowhere without the cops following me.
Turns out someone called 911 to report a burglary in progress. And the suspect? The building's brand new tenant, Martin.
Somebody called the cops on me in my own building. About how many y'all? About 6 of y'all showed up, rolled up on me.
This was the only time that I had to move, and I didn't think anyone was really gonna call the cops on me because, I mean, I was moving into the building.
Without skipping a beat, Martin went live on Instagram, documenting the encounter with authorities.
Trying to break into my own apartment. Oh my God.
An investigation later determined there was nothing criminal about Martin's activity. He tells us his skin color, along with the gentrifying neighborhood along 106th Street, were obvious factors that led to police being called.
As a black man, when you're in an all-white environment, you're cognizant of that. So I have to say I found it symbolic and it's sort of a welcome to the neighborhood.
Sadly, Martin's story isn't one of a kind.
What did they get called for? Because there are two black guys sitting here meeting me? Yes.
Earlier this month, 2 black men were arrested at a Philadelphia Starbucks for trespassing after asking to use a bathroom. In Martin's case, he hopes the incident serves as a teaching moment for his neighbor and others out there jumping to conclusions.
Get to know folks before you make these assumptions, because, you know, when you make that call, there's no going back, and it could have ended up very differently.
Now, our calls to Pine Management, the company that manages the building on 106th Street, were not returned.
Well, a substitute teacher was removed from the school you see behind me after making a racially insensitive statement to a student during class. That young girl's mom says this is just the latest of several similar instances that have happened here.
She just cries. It broke her spirit. It broke her spirit bad.
Leavenworth mom Jamila says she was shocked to learn the reason her daughter came home from school last Monday in tears.
I got a call from the principal saying that he needed to tell me that there was a teacher that was removed from the school for using racial derogatory remarks with my daughter.
What the teacher said to her daughter left her at a loss for words.
She looked at her and she said, "Don't give me your ugly black girl face."
A remark Jamila says was made loudly twice in front of the entire class.
She was humiliated by a staff member, someone that is supposed to protect your kid when we as parents are not there.
In a statement emailed to Fox 4 News, a Leavenworth School District representative says the principal interviewed the student, took a report, and removed the substitute teacher from the school within about 20 minutes of this happening. But Jamila says it's not the first time an incident like this has occurred within the district.
There's been ongoing problems with the staff being bullies at the school.
She worked for the school district as a before and after school site director and most recently as a paraprofessional. She recalls a Halloween party in which a student was permitted to wear a costume resembling a white hood worn by members of the KKK.
Well, I think we need to take a look at the leadership there. All of the staff and substitute need to be retrained and learn how to talk to children and remain professional.
Going forward, Jamila says she'd like to see more diversity on the Leavenworth School District staff. She'd also possibly like to see racial sensitivity training to cut down on instances like this in the future.
Now to the University of Florida, responding to charges of racism this morning after a white faculty member grabbed and pushed minority students off stage when they started doing celebratory dances at graduation. ABC's Victor Okendo is in Miami with the story. Good morning, Victor.
Good morning, Michael. It's a moment they'll remember for the rest of their lives, but for the wrong reasons. We spoke with 2 of the graduates who say they were humiliated.
Commencement celebrations cut short for these University of Florida graduates. This video shows black students enjoying their moment, dancing in their caps and gowns until they're forcibly grabbed and shoved off stage.
In general, I don't think I've ever been handled in that manner, not even by my parents. It's kind of embarrassing, kind of degrading.
The students reportedly being rushed off the stage for taking too long, but the university now facing backlash, accused of targeting only black students at the ceremony.
His response was not arbitrary. It was definitely contingent on your race. Other white students who were dancing were not perceived as a threat.
The graduates saying they'd planned their celebrations beforehand and that the dances had symbolic meanings in their fraternities and sororities.
So I kind of planned what I wanted to do on the stage to celebrate my story and all the hard work I've done at the University of Florida, but I was instantly blocked by one of the officials on stage.
As the video spread online, the university's president apologizing at another ceremony.
We inappropriately physically rushed a number of students across the stage in one of our commencements. And I want to personally apologize for us doing that on behalf of myself and also the University of Florida.
The graduates say the damage has been done.
The lasting impression, at least for undergrad, will be them watching their son having his back turned towards the audience and being handled like a savage animal.
Those graduates say that the apology is not enough, that the president of the university was on stage watching this happen and did nothing to stop it. They want to hold the university accountable here.
Alright, and we back on the forecast. And I want to say RP to the brother Ricky Boyd. It was not his choice to be shot down by the police in front of his grandmother and his brothers and sisters on his grandmother's porch. To a degree, it is a choice for us to keep allowing this kind of thing to keep happening. But that choice is easier said than done. It has been hundreds of years, and there are people who fought their whole lives trying to change the situation. It's not as simple as choosing, because then you have to take the action. Then we'll have to respond with more urgency than they do to maintain their position when our blood is being shed. Then we will have to stop pointing the finger at ourselves and focus on the root of the problem. But it's always easier to point the finger at ourselves and go hard on ourselves and cape for everybody else but ourselves. But until we put this tribalism aside, then we will have this slavery mindset. As long as we keep fighting over trivial things, then we're going to continue to be subject to their laws, their punishment, and whatever they say goes. So, as always, man, we have got to start standing for something, or we gonna keep falling for anything.